Let's begin. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Sky High Stories. Lila had always believed in love the way some people believe in fairy tales. She had poured her heart into her marriage, sacrificing little moments and personal dreams just to see Derek smile. He had been charming at first, attentive, successful, and seemingly devoted. But over time, the warmth she had cherished melted away into cold ambition. Lila, once confident and vibrant, now felt like a shadow of herself, fragile and uncertain, clinging to the remnants of a love that no longer existed. Her eyes, once bright with hope, were now dulled by the sting of betrayal. Derek, on the other hand, had changed too. Ambitious to the point of ruthlessness, he viewed life through a lens of success and status. Lila's pregnancy, which should have been a moment of joy, had become in his mind a weight he did not want to bear. He justified his decision to leave her by convincing himself that he was entitled to freedom, to a life unhindered by responsibilities that distracted from his ambitions. "She's holding me back," he muttered one night, a cold finality in his tone, as he filed the divorce papers without a second thought. Lila's heart broke in ways words could scarcely describe. The apartment that once echoed with laughter now felt like a prison. Every corner held a memory of Derek's promises, now turned hollow. She clutched her growing belly, feeling both fear and confusion for the future. Yet, even in her pain, a flicker of something stubborn and unyielding remained within her. Deep down, though Derek could not see it, Lila possessed a quiet strength, a resilience that would one day transform heartbreak into empowerment. In that moment of weakness, she was vulnerable, yes, but unknowingly, she was also at the starting line of a journey that would change her life forever. After the divorce, Lila's world seemed to crumble around her. The once cozy apartment felt hollow, echoing with the absence of laughter and the faint traces of memories she wished she could erase. Nights were the hardest. She would sit alone, staring at the ceiling, letting tears fall freely, wondering how someone she had loved so deeply could leave her at her weakest. Friends had tried to reach out, but their words felt distant, their sympathy unable to fill the gaping hole left in her life. Even casual acquaintances seemed to whisper behind her back, judging her for failing at what society called a perfect marriage. Financial worries compounded her emotional strain. Derek had left her with only the bare minimum, claiming legal and career reasons, and the looming bills and rent payments felt suffocating. Lila was forced to face realities she had never imagined: grocery shopping on a tight budget, managing appointments alone, and confronting the cold bureaucracy of banks and landlords. Every step felt like a battle, yet she continued, often on autopilot, carrying a weight that seemed far heavier than her small, exhausted frame could bear. Yet, amid the despair, flashes of Lila's inner strength appeared, small but undeniable. Memories of her mother's words, of her childhood resilience, surfaced unbidden. She remembered late nights studying alone, learning to stand on her own 2 feet, and the way she had fought to achieve small victories in her earlier life. Even now, she found herself silently planning tiny ways to reclaim control. A new skill to learn, a small freelance job, a way to save just a little money. These thoughts were fleeting but persistent, like sparks in a dark room. By the end of those long, tear-stained nights, a subtle determination began to take root. Lila realized she could not remain a victim forever. The heartbreak had stripped her bare, yes, but it had also revealed something she had forgotten: her own power. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, she made a vow to herself. She would rise again, not for Derek, not for anyone else, but for her own life, her own future, and the promise of strength she had always carried within her. Ethan was a man who commanded attention without demanding it. Tall, impeccably dressed, with a charisma that drew people in, he had built his empire from nothing, earning both wealth and respect. Yet, behind the sharp suits and confident smile, there was a kindness that set him apart, a rare ability to see the person behind the exterior, to notice what others overlooked. In a room full of influential figures, he had the gift of making every individual feel seen and valued. Their meeting was entirely by chance. Lila had attended a charity auction she could barely afford, hoping for distraction more than anything else. Ethan was there as a guest speaker, supporting the same cause. When Lila accidentally knocked over a glass, sending water cascading toward the delicate setup, Ethan was the first to steady it, offering a reassuring smile that made her heart skip. He didn't treat her with pity or condescension. Instead, he acknowledged her with calm confidence, recognizing her poise amid embarrassment. As they spoke briefly, Ethan noticed more than just her composure. He saw a resilience in her eyes, a subtle strength beneath the surface of vulnerability. There was a quiet grace in her demeanor, a softness tempered with determination, and he found himself intrigued. Lila, for her part, sensed something different in him, not the overbearing presence of someone used to controlling situations, but a genuine curiosity, a patient attentiveness that made her feel, for the first time in months, like her thoughts and feelings mattered. In that fleeting encounter, a connection formed, tentative yet undeniable. It wasn't instant romance, but a spark of mutual respect, a recognition of two people who had endured struggles and understood the value of strength and perseverance. Neither could have predicted the ways their lives would intertwine, but in that moment, both sensed that destiny had brought them together for reasons yet to be revealed. Lila's transformation began quietly, in the small, determined steps she took each day to reclaim her life. Financial independence became her first goal. With no one to rely on but herself, she started a small creative business from home, turning her long-neglected passion for designing bespoke stationery into a modest but promising venture. Each sale, each satisfied customer, became a brick in the foundation of her new life. Slowly, she ventured into investments, cautiously learning the intricacies of the stock market and property deals, surprising herself with how capable she truly was. Money, once a source of anxiety and powerlessness, became a tool for autonomy and control, a tangible reminder that she no longer needed Derek's approval or support. Emotional healing came next, though it was far more complicated. Lila sought therapy, learning to untangle the web of self-doubt and betrayal that had kept her chained to the past. She rebuilt friendships that had been neglected during her marriage and discovered new ones that encouraged her growth. Simple joys, once taken for granted, became anchors in her life. Evening walks in the park, cooking meals she enjoyed, and returning to hobbies that had always given her a sense of fulfillment. Slowly, she reclaimed a sense of self-worth that had been buried beneath heartache. Physical and social transformation followed naturally. Lila began caring for her body with gentle discipline. Yoga in the mornings, nutritious meals, and mindful self-care. Her wardrobe evolved into one that reflected her confidence, combining elegance with personality. Her posture, the spark in her eyes, and the effortless grace in her movements all announced that she had emerged from darkness into light. Throughout this journey, Ethan was present but never overpowering. He admired her independence, offering guidance only when asked and celebrating her victories without overshadowing them. His support was subtle, like a gentle breeze that helped her rise higher rather than pushing her forward. By the time Lila stepped into the world fully renewed, she was a woman transformed. The vulnerability that had once defined her had given way to empowerment. The heartbreak and struggle had forged her into someone radiant and strong, capable of facing any challenge with poise. She was no longer the woman Derek had underestimated. She had become her own force of nature, resilient, self-assured, and unstoppable. As the months passed, Lila and Ethan's connection deepened in ways that felt effortless yet profound. Their relationship was built not on grand gestures or fleeting romance, but on mutual respect, trust, and shared laughter. They discovered a rhythm in each other's presence. Ethan admired Lila's intelligence and determination, while she appreciated his grounded nature and genuine kindness. Conversations flowed easily, filled with playful humor and thoughtful insights, each dialogue reinforcing the growing bond between them. Key moments strengthened their connection. They worked side by side at philanthropy events, organizing fundraisers and distributing aid to underprivileged communities. Lila watched Ethan interact with people, his patience and empathy shining, and she found herself drawn to the depth of his character. In business collaborations, their professional compatibility became apparent. Brainstorming ideas for her stationery brand, negotiating partnerships, and strategizing investments, they complemented each other perfectly. These moments fostered mutual admiration and trust, the kind that could weather challenges and disagreements without faltering. Even glimpses of personal life added warmth to their growing closeness. They shared quiet dinners, discussed childhood memories, and laughed over small mishaps that might have seemed trivial to outsiders but became treasured experiences between them. Slowly, Lila allowed herself to open her heart again, discovering joy and intimacy without fear or hesitation. A stark contrast to the guarded vulnerability she had displayed during her years with Derek. Yet, even as happiness blossomed, subtle tension began to creep in. Derek, now hearing whispers of Lila's growing success through mutual acquaintances and social media posts, felt an unexpected pang of jealousy. Seeing Lila's name associated with flourishing businesses, her image radiating confidence and joy, stirred memories of the life he had discarded. Unaware of the depth of her transformation and the life she was building with Ethan, Derek began to sense that the woman he once deemed weak had grown far beyond his reach. In the quiet, intimate spaces of their shared journey, Lila and Ethan's bond strengthened, laying a foundation of love, respect, and partnership that Derek could never have anticipated. Their connection was no longer just a spark. It was becoming an unshakable force, forged in trust and shared growth. It was a gala at one of the city's most prestigious venues, a sparkling night of chandeliers, flowing champagne, and influential figures. Derek had been invited reluctantly through business contacts, still attempting to maintain a semblance of his former life. Yet as he mingled with the crowd, exchanging polite smiles and hollow conversations, his attention was suddenly captured by a familiar figure, Lila. She entered the grand ballroom with a presence that made heads turn. Gone was the vulnerable woman he had left behind. Lila moved with grace and confidence, her eyes bright with assurance and a radiant smile that lit up the room. By her side was Ethan, tall and composed, exuding a quiet strength and charm that perfectly complemented Lila's elegance. Derek's heart stuttered in disbelief, a strange mix of admiration and disbelief twisting in his chest. He had never seen her like this, so alive, so empowered, so undeniably happy. But what truly caught him off guard were the children, 3 little bundles of energy who clung to Lila and Ethan with easy affection. Their laughter rang through the hall, a sound that seemed impossibly pure and joyful. The eldest tugged at Lila's hand, while the youngest clung to Ethan, burying a small face in his chest. They were playful, confident, and utterly at ease in their family's warmth. To Derek, they were symbols of a life he could never reclaim, reminders that Lila had not just survived but thrived. Lila noticed him almost immediately, her gaze calm yet measured. There was no rush to confront him, no bitterness on her face, only the poised assurance of someone who had outgrown her past. Derek, by contrast, felt exposed and small, his arrogance of years gone, replaced by raw regret. His chest tightened as he watched the effortless interaction between Lila, Ethan, and the children, each laugh and gesture a testament to a happiness he had chosen to abandon. Jealousy prickled at him, a bitter reminder of choices he could never undo. Disbelief shadowed his expression as he realized that the woman he had discarded had built a life far richer, far fuller, and far more beautiful than he could have imagined. For the first time, Derek confronted the stark truth. Lila's world no longer had a place for him, and her radiant transformation was a mirror reflecting all that he had lost. Derek's pride struggled against the whirlwind of emotions he felt as he watched Lila from across the room. After several deep breaths, he forced himself to approach her, straightening his jacket and plastering a polite, controlled smile across his face. His steps were measured, but inside, a storm brewed, regret, jealousy, and disbelief mixing with the remnants of the arrogance that had once defined him. "Lila," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "It's been a while." His words were courteous, but the undertone carried a quiet bitterness, an unspoken acknowledgement that he was seeing something he had once taken for granted. Lila met him with calm poise, her posture impeccable, her expression serene. There was no venom in her voice, no trace of the hurt that had once threatened to consume her. Instead, she spoke with a dignity that made every word deliberate, measured, and impactful. "Yes, it has," she replied softly, her eyes steady and confident. "I hope life has been treating you well." Her tone was polite, neutral, yet carried the subtle strength of someone who had endured and risen above betrayal. As they exchanged these brief words, both allowed themselves fleeting internal reflections. Derek's mind raced, haunted by the realization that he had underestimated Lila's resilience. He thought back to moments when he had dismissed her feelings, ignored her strength, and chosen ambition over empathy. The bitter truth gnawed at him. She had flourished without him, becoming a woman he could no longer influence or control. Lila, on the other hand, reflected quietly on her journey. The nights of doubt and tears, the painstaking steps she had taken toward independence, the friendships rekindled, the business she had nurtured, and the family she had built with Ethan. The contrast between her past weakness and her present strength was undeniable. Ethan stood nearby, observing silently, his expression one of quiet pride. There was no need for words, his confidence in Lila's transformation spoke volumes. Together, they presented an unshakable front, a family bonded by trust, love, and respect, a vision of happiness Derek could only watch from afar. The evening continued, and Derek's gaze kept returning to the scene unfolding before him. Lila surrounded by laughter, warmth, and the unmistakable energy of her 3 children. The eldest, a bright and inquisitive boy of 7, was sharing a story with Ethan, his eyes sparkling as he gestured wildly with his hands. The middle child, a spirited 5-year-old girl with a mischievous grin, darted between her mother and Ethan, seeking attention and laughter, her giggles filling the room. The youngest, barely 3, clung to Lila's side, shy but clearly comfortable in the safe haven of her mother's embrace. Each child carried the charm of innocence, the intelligence of curiosity, and the joy of belonging, all of it radiating from the loving, secure environment Lila and Ethan had cultivated together. Derek's heart clenched as he watched. Every gesture, every laugh, every small argument or playful scolding spoke of a life he had never imagined for Lila. A life that was fully hers, built on resilience, love, and mutual respect. It was not just survival. She was thriving in every sense. She moved through her children with gentle authority, her eyes filled with pride, and her smile reflected the fulfillment of a woman who had reclaimed her destiny. In that moment, Derek realized the full extent of what he had lost. This wasn't a fleeting success or a temporary happiness, it was a complete, thriving life. Lila had created a world in which she was empowered, loved, and deeply connected, a world where he had no place. Every ounce of arrogance and control he had once relied on now seemed insignificant compared to the strength, grace, and joy she radiated. Derek felt a pang of impossibility. No words, no gestures, no attempts could insert him back into this life. He was an outsider to the harmony he had once disrupted, a spectator to a story he had abandoned. Lila's fulfillment was a silent statement, unyielding and absolute. She had moved beyond the weakness he had exploited, and the life she now led was a testament to her courage, resilience, and unwavering determination to thrive. Derek stood at the edge of the room, a glass of untouched champagne trembling slightly in his hand. The laughter of Lila and her children filled the space, vibrant and uncontainable, and every sound felt like a silent accusation. Guilt gnawed at him relentlessly, a constant reminder of the choices he had made, the cold ambition that had led him to abandon the woman who had loved him most. He felt the weight of loss pressing down, heavier than any business failure or social slight he had ever endured. He observed from a distance, unable to approach, unable to reclaim any part of the life he had discarded. Every glance he stole was a reminder that he had no place here, that the happiness he once took for granted had been replaced by a life he could never touch. Lila moved among her children with ease, radiating warmth, strength, and fulfillment. The way she laughed with Ethan, the tender gestures between them, and the playful interactions with the children were all markers of a life fully realized, a life he had forfeited through his own selfishness. For the first time, Derek confronted the consequences of his arrogance. The realization that Lila had not only survived but flourished was bitter yet undeniable. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that his past cruelty had paved the way for her triumph. There was no turning back, no way to rewrite the choices he had made. As he stood there, a flicker of reflection stirred within him. Perhaps this was a moment to reconsider his own path, to seek growth and understanding, even if it came too late for reconciliation. Meanwhile, Lila's life continued, vibrant and complete, a living testament to her resilience. Poetic justice had been served, she was happy, thriving, and untouchable by the past, while Derek was left to grapple with regret, watching from the sidelines as the woman he had underestimated rose higher than he ever could. Years had passed, and Lila's life had become a testament to resilience, determination, and unwavering courage. Her business had grown beyond her wildest dreams, her creative ventures turning into a thriving empire that blended artistry with innovation. She was no longer the fragile, uncertain woman Derek had once abandoned. She was a force in her own right, commanding respect and admiration wherever she went. Yet her success was never hollow. It was intertwined with love, joy, and the family she had built alongside Ethan. Their home was a lively sanctuary, filled with the laughter of their 3 children, each one reflecting a part of Lila's strength and Ethan's steadfast guidance. Mornings were bright with playful chaos, evenings with heartfelt conversations, and every moment carried the warmth of a life chosen consciously, nurtured with care, and embraced fully. Lila had created a world where love and ambition coexisted harmoniously, where she could pursue her passions while raising her children in a nurturing and secure environment. Financial triumph, emotional fulfillment, and personal growth converged to form a life that was entirely hers, a life she controlled, designed, and celebrated every single day. The woman who had once been at her weakest had transformed into a symbol of empowerment, her confidence radiating in every interaction, every decision, and every dream she pursued. Even Derek, who occasionally heard whispers of her continued success, remained a distant observer of a life he had chosen to reject. The contrast between past weakness and present strength was stark, undeniable, and irrevocable. Lila often paused quietly to reflect on her journey, the heartbreak, the struggle, the growth. And in those moments, she would smile with a quiet, unshakable certainty. She had endured, she had thrived, and she had built a life that no betrayal could ever touch. She was unstoppable, radiant, and free, the architect of her own destiny.